So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the AQA GCSE Maths past paper of June 2024 on the higher tier paper 1, which is a non-calculator paper. Now before we get started working through this workthrough, just a little reminder that I'll include a question breakdown so you can see which topic each question relates to, which is going to be particularly useful if you find any particular questions tough. You can see what topic it is and maybe go back and review and revise that topic. And I'll also include a link to the 162 Maths contents page, which gives you easy access to all the lessons, topic tests, audits and other exam paper walkthroughs. So let's get started on question 1. So question 1 says work out 12 squared divided by 1/3 of root 36. So for this, what we need to do is first of all work out what 12 squared is, which is 144. And then if we work out the bracket, well, root 36 is 6, and that's 1/3 times 6, which is the same as 6 over 3, which equals 2. So I want to do 144 divided by 2, which gives me the answer of 72. Moving on to question 2, it says measure the shortest distance from P to the line. So for this, what we need to do is to draw a perpendicular line from the line to P, and then we want to measure that line, and the mark scheme would accept any answer in millimeters of 31 millimeters to 34 millimeters. So as long as your length between those two lengths there, then that would be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 3, it says the vector minus 3, 7 translates to A to B. Write down the vector that translates B to A. Now if you're doing the reverse vector, then all we need to do is just reverse the sign of the numbers you can see. So minus 3 becomes positive 3 and positive 7 becomes minus 7. It then says for question 7, the attendance for a rugby match is 8,400 people to the nearest 100. Write down the minimum possible attendance. So for this, looking at upper and lower bounds, what we need to do is halve the rounding error. So that's going to be plus or minus 50. And so the boundary is going to be 8,400 plus or minus 50. And that gives us an inequality of 3550A, if we just represent that for the attendance, and 8,450. So the minimum amount that could attend is going to be 8,350, and the maximum possible attendance has to be the next integer, or the largest integer that's less than 8,450, which is 8,449. Moving on to question 5, it says that a school year has 78 students, 28 wear glasses, a quarter of the students who wear glasses are left-handed, and 30% of the students who do not wear glasses are left-handed. And the question is asking us to complete the Venn diagram. So if I just zoom out just slightly so we can see the question in all its entirety. And let's just go back to that question here. And let's have a look at the information. So looking at our first bit of information, that 28 wear glasses, well, that basically means that this circle under G has to add up to 28. It then says that a quarter of the students who wear glasses are left-handed, so a quarter of 28, and that's going to be 28 divided by 4, which is 7, times 1, which is 7, so are going to be left-handed, so that's 7. If the total circle adds up to 28, then to work out this number here, it's going to be 28 minus 7, which is 21. Looking at the next set, it says 30% of the students who do not wear glasses are left-handed. So not wearing glasses. Well, if there's 28 that wear glasses, the amount that's not going to be wearing glasses is 78 minus 28, which is 50. So these two numbers here need to add up to 50. Now from this, we can then work out that 30% of 50, well, 10% is 5, so 30% is going to be 15. And it says do not wear, who wear glasses are left-handed. So that means that this is going to be 15 and this is going to be 35, and that's my completed Venn diagram. Then for 5b, it says a left-handed student is chosen at random. So that's going to be from this circle here, in which we've got 22 students, and it says work out the probability of these 22 students, how many of them wear glasses, and that's going to be 7, so it's 7 over 22. Then moving on to question 6, it says the table shows the number of workers at a company in different years. A time series graph is drawn to represent the data. The first 4 points have been plotted, and question 6a is asking us to complete the graph. So what we need to do here is, if I just zoom out so we can see the table and the graph in all its entirety, and there we go. And so what I need to do is just carefully plot these values for the next 4 years against these years. So for 2019 it's 62, so every little box represents 2. For 2020 it's 70, so that's going to be there. 2021 is 76, which is going to be there, and for 2022 that's going to be 80. And then what I then need to do is just carefully with a ruler, which I'm just going to not use a ruler, but hopefully it should be relatively straight, is then join these points up, and I should get something that looks like this. Then for B, it then says estimate the number of workers at the company in 2023. So looking at the projection of what the current lines are, we could draw a line of best fit of what that should be, but it's looking like it's going to project somewhere in this region here. So as long as you've got for B any answer between 82 and 90 would be good enough for that single mark. Moving on to question 7, it says here is a cone, and it says the curved surface area of the cone is pi r L, where r is the radius and L is the slant side. Beth tries to work out the curved surface area in terms of pi, and she's done pi times 5 times 12, which equals 60 pi centimetre square. What mistake has she made? Well, the mistake that she's made is that L is 13, not 12. So you just want to write something along those lines. So if I just zoom in and hope it doesn't crash, and obviously it does, so let me just scroll down back to that question. So something along the lines that Beth has used L equals 12 instead of 13. So something along those lines that she's used the wrong slanted length would be fine for that single mark. It then says for question 7b, Adam uses pi equals 3 to estimate the area of the base of the cone. Work out his estimate. Well, the base area is a circle, and the area of a circle is pi times r squared. Now r is equal to 5, and what Adam has used is pi equals 3, so that's going to be 3 times 5 squared, which equals 3 times 25, which gives me an estimate value of 75. Then for 7c, it says Beth uses pi equals 3.14 to estimate the area of the base of the cone. Is Beth's estimate more than or less than Adam's estimate? Well, it's going to be more than, and the reason for that is because a higher value of pi is used. You can write something along the lines of 3.14 is greater than 3. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. Then moving on to question 8, and let's just zoom in so we can see it a bit clearer on the screen. So it says solve 7x minus 22 equals 4x plus 29. So for this, what we want to do is get rid of the smallest x by taking it away. So that leaves us with 3x minus 22 equals 29. We then take the 22 over by adding 22, so I'm left with 3x equals 51. I then take the 3 over by dividing by 3, which leaves me with an answer of 17. So moving on to question 9, it says in a house the floor area of the living room is 26 square meters and the area of the kitchen is 16.4 square meters. Express the area of the living room as a fraction of the area of the kitchen. So for this, what we're wanting is we've got the kitchen as our denominator and the living room as our numerator. So we've got 26 over 16.4. Then what we want to do is we can't write decimals in a fraction, so if I multiply both the top and the bottom by 10, I get 260 over 164. Then for this, I then need to simplify this fraction. And again, you can go through as many roots as you want. So you could have 130 over 82, which simplifies ultimately to 65 over 41. So you can either leave your answer as an improper fraction, or you can convert it into a proper fraction, mixed number rather, which gives me 1 and 24 over 41. So any of those two answers there will be good enough for the 3 marks. Moving on to question 10.8, it says represent -2 and 4 where x is between those, exclusive of those numbers, on a number line. So I put a circle around the -2, a circle around 4. I don't need to shade it because it can't equal those numbers, and then I just have a line that connects those two circles. 10b, it says solve 5y plus 14 is greater or equal to 11. So again, all I want to do is make y the subject. So I take away the 14, I'm left with 5y is greater or equal to -3. And then I take the 5 over, leaving me with y is greater or equal to -3/5. Again, you can either leave it as a fraction or write it as a decimal, whichever floats your boat is good enough. Moving on to question 11, it says describe fully the single transformation that maps A to B. So if I just zoom out a little bit, and what I need to do is, well, first of all, establish that this is definitely going to be an enlargement, and with any enlargement I need to state the scale factor and I need to state the center. And so let me just correct the spelling of that one. So the scale factors go from A to B. So to picking one side, I've got 4 on the original shape, 2 on the new. So that's going to be 1 over 2 because we're halving it. And then we need to find the center of enlargement. So to do that, what you do is you find one vertex on the original shape and you draw a line extending that to the new shape. Let me just make sure that is accurate as possible, and then I do one for another point, and what you should find is that those two lines do intersect, in which they do, and my center of enlargement is this point here, which as a coordinate is -1. Oh no, -1, it's -7. And there we go. So to get the 3 marks, just need to state those 3 things. Moving on to question 12, let's just zoom in a little bit. It says that the sector has a radius of 12 centimeters, an angle of 60. Work out the length of the arc. Well, the arc length is equal to theta over 360 multiplied by 2 pi r. So that's the formula we need to use. Theta is 60 and r is 12. So if I substitute those numbers in, I get 60 over 360 multiplied by 2 multiplied by pi times 12. Now if I simplify the fraction, I get a 1/6. If I simplify all of this, I get 24 pi. Which then equals 24 pi over 6. I can simplify the 24 and the 6, which just leaves me with 4 pi. And there is my answer for that one. Moving on to question 13, it says ABCDE is a pentagon with AB equals 7 centimeters. It then says that BC is equal to 6 centimeters, AB and BC are perpendicular, AB and DC are equal and parallel. The area of the pentagon is 54 square centimeters, and the pentagon has exactly one line of symmetry. And the question is asking me complete a label drawing of the pentagon. So if I just zoom out, just so I can see all of those sort of rules, and there we go. So I know that BC is perpendicular. So if I count 6 squares from there, I get this line here. So let me just join that up. And with this particular question, I strongly recommend that you label as you go along, so you're not losing track. So that is BC. It then says that DC is equal and parallel. So that means D must be here and have a length of 7 squares. So if I draw another line from there, and let me just neaten that up like so. Now if I just cut this rectangle up that in order for it to have one line of symmetry and for it to be a pentagon and to fulfill the other lengths, that this length needs to be the same as this one and it needs to be perpendicular, that it's going to look something that looks like this. Now, with this particular pentagon, I've got a rectangle and I've got a triangle. Now, this rectangle has got a length of 7 and a base of 6. So 7 times 6 is 42. And it says that the total area is 54. So that means that this triangle here must have an area of 12. So for the work out the area of a triangle, that's base times height divided by 2. Now I know that the area of one is going to equal 12, and I know that the base is 6 times h divided by 2. So that's 24 equals 6h, so h equals 4. So the height of this triangle needs to be 4, so this is where E is going to be. So then if I just join them up, and what your pentagon should look like is it should look something like this. And again, you want to try and be as accurate and as neat as possible. So I'm hoping that yours would be a lot better than mine. Just make that a tad bit smaller, like so. And this height here is 4. And then the line of symmetry is just straight along there. And there we go. And that's what your pentagon should look like. Then moving on to question 14, it says 4 chocolate bars and 3 packets of mints cost £4.70. 5 chocolate bars and 1 packet of mints cost £4.50. Work out the cost of a chocolate bar and the cost of a packet of mints. Now, if you've not recognised, this one is a simultaneous equation question. So if we start by having the cost of a chocolate bar, which I'm going to call C, and the packet of mints, which I'm going to call M. So looking at the first order, we've got 4C plus 3M equals £4.70, and 5C plus 1M equals £4.50. Now for this, what we want to try and do with simultaneous equation is make one of the quantities the same. So I could make the C's the same, but I'm going to make M's the same because all I need to do for that is just multiply the bottom equation by 3. So what that then becomes is 15C plus 3M equals £13.50. And if I move the first equation down, I get this. Now, as my m's are the same, they're both the same sign, so what I now need to do is take away the two equations. 15c take away 4c is 11c, the m's cancel out, and £13.50 take away £4.70 is £8.80. So that means that one chocolate bar must cost 0.80 or 80 pence. So that's one of the values. Then for using one of the equations, I'm going to go for 5c plus 1m equals £4.50. I know m equals 80 pence, so 5c is going to be £4. So £4 plus 1m equals £4.50, in which 1m must equal 50 pence. And there is my second value. So going to the answers, we get a chocolate bar, which is either written in pounds or you can write it in pence, and a packet of mints, which is 0.50 in pounds or 50 pence. Moving on to question 16, it says between which two consecutive integers does square root of 210 lie? Well, 14, well, let's go for the square numbers. Well, 12 squared is 144, 13 squared is 169, 14 squared is 196, and 15 squared is 225. So you can see that 210 is between these two square numbers. So which two integers does it lie between? Well, it's going to be 14 and 15. For 15b, it says here are two calculations, A and B, and it says use approximations to show that answer of A is less than the answer of B. Well, approximating 1.62 is 2, so that's 2 to the power of 7, and approximating 6.9 is 7. 2 to the power of 7 is going to give me 128, and 7 cubed, which is 49, times 7, which is 343. Then doing 128 plus 343, well, that gives me 1 to carry. That's going to give me 6, 7, and that's 4. So that equals 471. So A equals 471. Then to work out 5 times the cube root of 1 million, well, 3 zeros becomes 1 0, 3 zeros becomes another, and then that becomes 100. And so 5 times 100, which gives me a B value of 500. And then all we then need to do is just show that that's smaller. So 471 is less than 500, which is what they wanted me to show. Moving on to question 16, it says the table shows information about ages of members of 2 clubs. And it says compare the average age and the consistency of ages for the members of the 2 clubs. So looking at the average, so what we want to compare are these 2 numbers here. So on average, now you can write something along the lines, it could be the opposite, but as long as it's going in the same, it implies the same, then that's fine. So on average, members at the swimming club were younger than those in the cycling club. Now, of course, with this particular question, you could have said the opposite. You could have said that the members of the cycling club were older than the swimming club, but as long as you use the word on average, then that's absolutely fine. Now, when it comes to consistency, there we are comparing the interquartile range. And the smaller the interquartile range, the more consistent the results are. So the age range of the cycling club were similar than those in the swimming club. Simply because it's got a higher interquartile range. Something along those lines. So you could talk about the fact that the people in the cycling club were more of a similar age, whereas those in the swimming club were a bit more varied in age. So something along those lines for those 2 marks would be fine. Moving on to question 17, it says rearrange y equals 3x plus 7 over x to make x the subject. So for this, what we want to do first is take x over. So we get xy equals 3x plus 7. Then you notice that we've got x's on both sides. So let's take this 3x over. So we end up with xy minus 3x equals 7. Then we factorize. So we've just got 1x, and then we take the bracket over to the other side. So we get x equals 7 over y minus 3. And again, if you want to include the brackets, that's absolutely fine as well. Moving on to question 18, it says that a circle has centre O and passes through 0, 6. Now the question is asking us to write down the equation of the circle. Well, the equation of a circle with centre of the origin is going to follow the format of x squared plus y squared equals r squared. Now, the radius of this particular circle is 6. So the equation you need to write is x squared plus y squared equals 6 squared, or you can write x squared plus y squared equals 36. So any of those 2 equations would be fine for the 1 mark. Moving on to question 19, it says A, B and C are numbers. Here is some information about B and C. So B is 7 quarters of A, and C, A is increased by 150%. Work out C as a fraction of B. So what this is asking for is to write C over B. Now, using this information, I know that B is equal to 7 over 4A, and C, as it's increased by 150%, well, that's going to be C equals 2.5A, which as a fraction is 5 over 2A. So these are the 2 fractions that I'm going to substitute in to work out C over B. So from this, what we've got is we've got C, which is 5 over 2A, over 7 over 4B. Actually, A that should be. And from this, the A's cancel out. So what I'm doing is 5 over 2 divided by 7 over 4. And if you remember the rules of dividing fractions, we flip the second fraction, turns to a multiply. 4 times 5 is 20, 2 times 7 is 14, which simplifies to give me 10 over 7. So any of those two fractions would be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 20, it says work out the values of A, B and C. Now this question refers to comparing the coefficients. So if I look at comparing the coefficients of x cubed, well, I've got 5 on the left hand side, and on the right hand side I've got k. So k equals 5, so that's one value there. Then looking at the coefficient of x squared, on the left hand side I've got a, and on the left hand side I've got a, on the right hand side I've got 2 minus k. Well, I already know what the value of k is, which is 5, so that's 2 minus 5, so a equals minus 3. Then if I look at the coefficient of x, on the left hand side I've got b, on the right hand side I've got a squared minus 1. Now I know that a equals minus 3, so a squared is going to be positive 9 minus 1, so b equals 8. And then finally the coefficient of the constant, on the left hand side I've got c, and on the right hand side I've got b over 2. I know b equals 8, so c equals 8 divided by 2, which leaves me with a c value of 4. So a equals minus 3, b equals 8, and c equals 4. Moving on to question 21, it says prove algebraically that 1.018 recurring is equal to 56 over 55. So with converting recurring decimals to fractions, I first of all make the decimal number equal to x, and then what you then want to do is multiply both the left hand side and right side by 10 or powers of 10, so that you've got that repeated pattern straight after that decimal point. So if I multiply it by 10, I get 10.18 with 1/8 recurring. Now I want to get 18 over to the side, so I need to multiply that by 1000x, in which I get 1018.18 recurring. Now it's these two lines that I'm going to use. So if I switch them around, what I get is 1000x equals 1018.18 recurring. I get 10x, which is equal to 10.18 recurring. And if I subtract the two things, I get 990x equals 1008. Then if I make x the subject, I get 990, and then all I then need to do is simplify this. So if I simplify, I get 504 over, and that's going to be 495, I make it 495, which ultimately will simplify down to 56 over 55, and there is my answer for that one. Moving on to question 22, it says A, B and C are points on a circle with centre O. AP and BP are tangents to the circle. Work out the size of angle X. So for this, what we need to do is, well, if I draw a line from A to O, those two lines there are the radius of the circle. So that means that this angle here and this angle here are going to be 90 degrees. Now, if that's 90 degrees, I've got the quadrilateral of OABP. So this angle here and this angle here must add up to 180. So if I do 180 minus 24, that gives me an answer of 156 degrees. So this angle here is 156. Now from this you should be able to spot we've got an arrowhead, so I can then work out what this angle here is going to be, which is going to be half of 156, which gives me an answer of 78 degrees. So x equals 78 degrees. And again, in the exam they would allow you to show your working out on the diagram. Moving on to question 23a, it says the first three terms of a geometric progression are root 5 over 2, 5 over 4 and 5 root 5 over 8. And it says work out the next term. Well, looking at the numerators, we should be able to spot that what you're doing is you're multiplying by root 5. And the denominators, what I'm doing is I'm doubling each of those. So that means that my R value of this geometric progression is going to be root 5 over 2. Now to find the next term, what I then need to do is take the previous term, which is 5 root 5 over 8, and I need to multiply that by my R value, which is root 5 over 2. So root 5 times root 5 is going to give me 5 root 25, and 2 times 8 is 16. Root 25 is 5, so that's going to be 5 times 5 over 16, which gives me 25 over 16 as my final answer. Then for question 23b, it says the nth term of a sequence is 2 plus root 3 to the power of n. Show that the third term is 26 plus 15 root 3. Well, for it to be the third term, that means that n equals 3. So what I want to work out is 2 plus root 3 to the power of 3. Now for this, what we need to spot is that this is a triple bracket question. Now, just to save a bit of time, I always, when you're doing expanding triple brackets, I always like to multiply out the second two brackets. So if I multiply each of those out, what I end up with is 4 plus 2 root 3 plus 2 root 3 plus root 9, which ultimately simplifies to 2 plus root 3, which is my first bracket, and that's going to give me, well, this is 3, so that's 7 plus 4 root 3. Now all that's left for me to then do is expand those brackets. So I've got 2 times 7, which is 14, plus 8 lots of root 3, then plus 7 lots of root 3, and 4 lots of root 9. Now 4 root 9 is 3, so that then becomes 14 plus 15 root 3 plus 12, which ultimately simplifies to 26 plus 15 root 3, which is exactly what they wanted me to show. Moving on to question 24a, it says 9k plus 7 and 2k squared plus 3 are consecutive integers. 9k plus 7 is the smaller integer. Work out the next consecutive integer. Well, with two consecutive integers, if I work out the difference, then the difference between two consecutive numbers must equal 1. And positive 1 if you take the big number, take away the smallest number. So if I do 2k squared plus 3, minus 9k plus 7, that should equal 1. Now with this, you just need to be mindful of the negative number or negative outside the bracket. So what I end it with is 2k squared plus 3 minus 9k minus 7 equals 1. Now if I simplify all of this, I get 2k squared minus 9k minus 4 equals 1. And hopefully you are then spotting that this is going to turn into a quadratic, and when solving quadratics you want to make it equal to 0. Now from this we then need to solve this, which it does, you can solve by factorising, and it does factorise to become 2k plus 1 and k minus 5 equals 0. Now from this what we end up with is k values of minus a half or positive 5. Now, if I substitute k equals minus a half into, let's say, 9k plus 12, that's going to give me a decimal number, because 9 times a half is 4.5. So when k equals minus a half, 9k plus 7 is going to give me 4.5, or minus 4.5 plus 7, which is 3.5, which is not an integer. So therefore, it can't equal a half. So k must be 5. Now if k must be 5, I then need to work out what these terms are. So therefore 9k plus 7 is going to be 9 times 5, which is 40, plus 7, 45 plus 7, which is 52. Then 2k squared plus 3. Well, k squared is 25, times 2 is 50, plus 3 is 53. So the next term or next consecutive number has got to equal 54, and there is my answer. Moving on to 24b, it says x is a square number. Show that the next square number is x plus 2 root x plus 1. Well, if x is a square number, then the original number is going to equal root x. Now the next number will therefore be root x plus 1, and the next square number will be root x plus 1 squared, which is root x plus 1 over root x plus 1. Now expanding this bracket out, what do we get? Well, root x times root x is x. Then I'm going to get plus 2 root x, and then 1 times 1, which is 1, and that is exactly what they wanted me to show. Moving on to our very last question, it says show that the value of sine 30 plus 2 cos 30 times tan 30, 4 tan 30 is an integer. Well, for this we need to use the exact values of trig, in which sine 30 is a half, cos 30 is root 3 over 2, and tan 30 is 1 over root 3. So if I substitute each of these into the expression, what do I end up with? Well, I end up with 6 lots of a half plus 2 lots of root 3 over 2 multiplied by 4 lots of 1 over 3. Now with this, the 6 and the 2, this then becomes 6 over 2, which then becomes 3. The 2's cancel out, so I'm just left with root 3 multiplied by 4 root 3. Now from this, what we then end up with is the root 3 and the root 3 cancel each other out. So it's just going to be 4 plus 3, which equals 7. And that there is my final integer. And that concludes the end of this paper. Now, if I have made any mistakes in this particular walkthrough, please do check out the description. Fingers crossed I haven't, but if I have, there'll be a note in the description. And I'll also include the grade boundary so you can see when you tallied up your marks, how many marks you would have got and what the individual score grade would be for this particular paper.